Then
Unhappy about what?
about the fact that the department has taken a decision to terminate the contract with Life Esidimeni. They were unhappy about that, yeah.
And were issues relating to the readiness of these NGOs to take care of these patients not raised?
Well, I don't recall the actual minute details of what is there. So all I can summarize is that they raised a concern, that they are not happy, that we are moving patients. And I must say that towards the end of the December, I recall, that was when there was the issue of going to court. I met with Section 27, and I met with Mark Haywood also at a person-to-person. And I said that whatever we do, and I'm saying it again, whatever we do as a department, we must move patients to a place either similar to where they are or far much better than that. And I said that, and I impressed upon the managers about that.
True. And then how did you ensure that these patients were moved according to your proposal, that is to institutions where they will receive similar care, quality of care?
But it will, advocate, it will go back to, if you say, was I now practically involved in saying these are the patients, they are moving from this end to another end, I wouldn't be able to do that. If you'll excuse me, it's not possible that if there's a project, then the HOD must now every day go there and
But
ensure
did you assure them, these two bodies, the three bodies you've referred to, and later the court, that the patients will be moved from Life Esidimeni only if they go to a comparable or better environment? Did you make that assertion?
Yeah, my assertion was, I hear your concerns and I see where you come from. The decision has been taken to move the patients. What should happen? The patients should go to places that either are similar to where they were or better. I said
Yes,
that.
that was your statement.
That
I
was my
remember reading it too.
I said
It's
that
quite
was my
impressive.
statement.
So your undertaking to these bodies concerned was, I will not have them move to circumstances inferior
Correct.
to where they are,
Correct. I made that undertaking.
and that their care, after all, these are mental health care users,
Vulnerable patients.
their care will not be any less than what they currently were receiving.
Yes,
That was your undertaking.
that was my undertaking.
In fact, I remember seeing it under oath in the court papers.
Yes, I made that undertaking.
Yes, you made that undertaking even in court papers. And I'm sure there'll be many questions around that, which inevitably the question will be, and what happened?
That's the pain.
You
yeah.
promised HOD, and what happened?
You promise on the strength of talking to managers and say, remember, when I was making that undertaking, I didn't only write it down, but I think in one of the meetings I had, and the date could have been actually the 22nd or 23rd of December, around there. Because I remember we then agreed that we don't have to go to court, we can...
The
just
deed of
on the-
settlement, yes. There'll be
Yes.
questions about that. A lot of
Yes.
questions, no doubt, from Section 27, from
Yeah.
other advocates.
Yeah, I did that on the strength that you, as an HOD, you make that undertaking on the strength of your managers, that you got to do it the right way, the right time, such that I've made an undertaking that this is how it's going to be.
And on the strength of your undertaking, that no harm will befall
No harm should be
these
done.
mental health care users,
That's right, Judge.
a settlement was entered into.
That's right. In fact, my meeting, the discussion that I had with Mark, and I said, maybe I didn't ask him permission whether can I say this, but one of the things that I said, it doesn't always have to be that we must always go to court with yourselves, meaning Section 27, to resolve issues. And that was my approach, to say we can still find one another in this thing. That was my approach.
And what happened? You made this undertaking to them in negotiations under oath before a court, and people were moved
Yes.
to facilities equivalent to life Esidimeni.
Well, I can only stand on my undertaking, and it didn't happen. But I was doing it on the strength of my managers.
What about your managers?
On the strength that in activities you make, let me give a slightly different example. If a supplier says, listen, I've not been paid, I need to be paid, and I speak to the supplier, I say, I'll go and talk to my managers, and on the strength of my managers, you will get your payment. It's a simple example, but I'm just illustrating why I made an undertaking. I was saying, you as managers, you've got the responsibility to do exactly the way I've said that. Must be better places, if not better than.
Not quite the same, isn't it, Doc? Here you have a duty not to harm
Yes, no, that's why I said
those under your
care.
care.
Right.
We have no debate about that, right?
No, there's no debate.
It's a clear legal duty, ethical duty, professional duty, not to harm those placed under your care. Constitutional duty.
Yeah.
No debate, right?
No debate.
And what went wrong?
Yeah, it's difficult. I mean, we all know that things didn't go according to the way they had been planned, and it's tragic.
Counsel.
Yes. And in fact, these undertakings, you made these undertakings in response to these concerns from your stakeholders.
Right.
And in fact, I want to point you to a passage from your, that is minutes of your department's meetings, that there was also a concern, I think, from within your department that these NGOs are not well equipped. So what I want to find out from you is that you had made an undertaking. What steps did you take to ensure that your undertakings are carried through?
Counsel, you are saying I should say this is what I did. I went to the NGOs. I checked them. It's not possible for me to do all those things. If the managers are the ones who say, I say to them, we've made an undertaking. I was not alone. Some of the managers were actually part and parcel of those discussions until the last minute, really. And they were there when that undertaking was made. So in your heart, as a leader, you believe, I've made a decision, I've made an undertaking. It must be seen through. Ordinarily, you are saying I should then have gone and made sure that, maybe on hindsight, if I had known. But if I had known, I would have cancelled everything. If I had known.
You have cancelled the what?
The whole, I'm saying in hindsight. Now, counsel is saying, what did I do? I said,
Yes.
I wouldn't have done anything except to say to the managers, we have made an undertaking, we must honor our word, and we must do it the right way. Then you correctly asked, what went wrong? Things went wrong, all right. And I'm saying, on hindsight, if you then knew that things would go wrong, you wouldn't even start. You'd just say, no, let's not go on. So I didn't know that things would go this wrong.
But Doctor, it can't be that easy. Here are professional bodies two bodies of clinicians who meet with you and warn you of the pending probable danger. Some of them even go to court to try and stop you from moving patients. And you promise them, let's settle, I'll consult you, I will not move these patients to any circumstances worse than the present. Why don't you make sure that your word is as good as your bond?
Yeah, I hear you, Justice. I hear you and I hear you very well. But like I'm saying, well, I didn't meet with the Psychiatry Association. I met mainly with SADC and Section 27, and we reached an agreement. So one of those agreements was that they also be part and parcel of the project team. They were also with Life Esidimeni, Dr. Mkacho. He was also part and parcel of the project team. That is what happened then. That they will be part and parcel of this. They will make sure that there are plans and they are happy. If they are not happy, we'll continue to discuss and find one another. That is what happened. That's prior to the implementation.
Let me put this, make this clear to you, is that, you know, the purpose of the inquiry around your role is that we want to find out whether, as the HOD, did you take steps to ensure that this project was implemented by your junior managers or employees of the department according to the concerns raised, your undertakings, and the plan, whether you're not simply rubber stamping the project?
Well, I don't know why you use the word rubber stamp, but I'm explaining that it wouldn't be feasible that, you see, it's hindsight that guides that if I had known that this would have been the consequence. But I am saying at that time, I work with managers every day. They come and give me information on this. You must, if there's 67,000 odd people in that department, you must develop some level of trust. If you are a leader, you lead people, and there are many projects inside the department, many activities. You need to develop a level of trust in people that I trust you that if you say you'll do this, it will be done. When you say you'll do this, it will be done. It's not possible then that, unless if you say I should have not trusted them.
No.
Maybe now I know now.
Dr. Selebano, when stakeholders raise the flag, when they raise a red flag, with all the trust in the world you have for your subordinates, and they say, watch out, there might be risks in the pending placement, what is your duty?
No, I don't understand. You're saying, sorry, Judge, if
Yes,
you don't
Section
mind.
27 or SADC or other people draw your attention to the risk of closing Life Esidimeni and transferring patients. Isn't there an extra duty to check, to look, to make sure?
Now that you say it, I hear you and I understand. But remember, this is a project that belongs to the department. In that meeting, there's Dr. Mazamisa, Dr. Lebete, everybody's in there. When I sit and I say, I've made an undertaking, we need to ensure that this undertaking is done to the letter. I'm not too sure to what extent would I then have to now every day walk with the implementers, the managers, in ensuring that that happens. I'm saying, would it really be feasible to do that?
Yes. We'll move out of this point, but let me leave you with this, that you trust your managers. That's fair enough. You ought to trust them. That is why they're employed, and you still keep them. And then, within that environment, there are other stakeholders who says to you that there are problems with this. Yes, we do know that you trust your managers, but there are problems with this. Shouldn't that concern you?
I hear you, Council. It would, but also, Council, in any process, the collective makes a decision. I represent the collective. And in a different way, you are introducing paralysis now in government, because from time to time when we try and do other things, people will contest what you are doing. You are not doing it the right way. You can't build a clinic here. So I'm saying sometimes when we now think about it now, what happened, it is where now we say, I just wish at that time, maybe something, God could have intervened and said, be careful. And when I spoke to some professors...
But what about the court case?
What?
What about the court case?
The court case, we agreed in that. I don't recall the actual, I'm not good in the legal things, but in that court case, we agreed. I don't recall well, and I'm not playing, I don't recall very well, because the papers were this big, and the legal people say, HOD, we've done our job, we've got a lawyer from outside, we are ready to go to court, sign this affidavit, because you are the one who must sign this thing.
Yeah, let's leave it there. Portions of your affidavit will be put to you by various counsel, I'm sure, very shortly, where you deal with claims that this project holds risks and dangers for mental health care users. They'll put your responses to those issues. So, counsel is trying to say, in your position, what did you do to stop all this? Because you were warned by various stakeholders.
Well, counsel probably wants me to say, I should have done this, I didn't do it. I didn't stop it. I didn't stop the project. I didn't stop it.
Let me refer you to an internal document on file 8, page 2729.
I don't know which file. Is this the file? File 8. You said?
File 8, 2729.
Yeah.
Are you there?
Yes. Yes, I'm here.
Yeah. Those are minutes of a meeting of 23 November 2015.
Okay.
And what I want to point out to you is that issues pertaining to this project were raised back then. And on page 2730,
2720,
the following page.
27229.
Just page over.
Backwards. 2719.
2730, 2730.
30. Sorry. Okay. Yeah, I'm there.
Yes. There's a column that is on the first column on the left, questions by family and SADC.
Can we identify the document for
Yeah.
the witness, please, and so he can familiarize himself with it, and then the questions follow.
The document on 2729, it's recorded, it's referred to as minutes of LA meeting with parents held on 23 November 2015, venue 19th floor, boardroom, BOL.
Okay.
Are you familiar with this document? Are these the minutes of your department?
You mean that they belong to the Department of
Yes.
Health, these minutes?
Yes.
Yeah, I've got no reason to doubt.
Yes. Were you present at this meeting?
I'm not too
Can
sure.
you recall?
I can't recall. It's not. I don't think I was present. I don't recall. I don't recall. I
You don't-
won't. If you can say I was present, I won't deny it.
But the document belongs to the
To
department.
the department, yes.
Okay. Then let's page over 2730.
7:30.
Yes. Now, in fact, Dr. Manamela confirmed that these were minutes of that meeting. She was aware of the meeting. Then the questions were raised, that is on the first column. It refers to questions by family and SADC. Do you recall that? Yeah, can you see that?
Questions by.
Yes, the first column.
Yeah.
Do you
That's
see
on
that?
2730.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then there is a responses by the department. The department indicated that the department is subsidizing the NGO to cater for mental health care, users in the province, the identified users and so on. Then under SADC raised certain concerns there. Do you see those concerns?
Okay, I can see that.
And in the third column, it's recorded, SADC was advised to get information from the right people so that whatever information they get should be accurate. Do you see that?
I can see that.
So it is quite clear as early as at that time that concerns were raised about this project, and SADC, amongst others, requested the project plan. Do you recall that?
Recall that I don't recall this meeting, but if you said I was there, like I said, I wouldn't argue. So I don't recall SADC saying to me, "We want the project plan."
Yes. And it is clear from the minutes of the meeting that SADC requested certain information about the project,
Okay.
which included a project plan. So what I want to put it to you is that why didn't all this attention on the department, specifically on this project, why didn't they heighten your concerns?
Well, this meeting, when I look at it, look at the date, 23rd November 2015.
Yes.
That's like I said, it was towards the end of November or early December when I started engaging now, myself, not managers now, with SADC, with Section 27. I mean, I was engaging with this. I was already engaging with the stakeholders. Remember in these meetings also, we had psychiatrists.
Yes.
The other doctors who also are in the department.
Yes.
So it's very difficult because we also rely on the advice as psychiatrists. So we have to balance. So it's very difficult for me.
It is precisely the point of this inquiry on you and your role. Why so much attention on this project was given by not your officials but other stakeholders. And the court action is not an isolated incident, remember? Hence the inquiry now on you.
Yeah, but Council, I hear you, and I take your point, but also you must accept you are relying on hindsight. Because if, God willing, things had gone the right way, we wouldn't be here. That's what I think. I hear what you are saying, and I accept what you are saying, but I'm saying, at that time, when you look back, you said, I would have perhaps intervened this way and that way and that way. Justice is not easy now for me to say, why didn't I do it? Because there were psychiatrists, Dr. I just don't recall them, but some were from Tara, some were from Sterkfontein, Dr. Park, I'm just recalling some were from Vescopis. They were part and parcel of this.
But
And
when these meetings occurred, Dr. Selebano, was the agreement still in place with Life Esidimeni?
No. By that time, I had signed for a
You had
6
signed
months.
it, yeah. So your juniors, those who reported to you, were confronted with that fait accompli, were they not? The contract had been cancelled. So what remained was, where do you take these mental health care users to? Is it not so? It's a different inquiry from whether or not you ought to move them. The inquiry then is, where do we take them to?
At that time.
Yes, at that time.
That's November, yes.
So your colleagues didn't have much options, did they? Other psychiatrists from other hospitals, I can see from the register of people who attended, they had to engage with how do we move the patients, not whether or not we're moving the patients. Is my understanding correct?
Your assessment is correct, but can I just say something? Remember, the officials that you're talking about outside the psychiatrists, they are the ones who drew up the plan. They are the ones who said, this is our plan, this is how we're going to do this, and can you then, based on this, sign the letter that terminates? So I hear you when you said it was a fait accompli, but actually, again, they were part of the collective that agreed to the termination. Alone, I would never agree to terminate, because I wouldn't know what to do if I were just to terminate the contract. I would never know what to do.
What are you saying to us, HOD? You're a victim of your people who worked for you.
No. I'm part of a collective. That's why you'd see that I have said even to the ombuds that you can't walk away. As a leader, when things don't go your way, you don't start pointing fingers at other
But
people.
leaders show direction, don't they? After listening to everybody else who works for them, leaders point the way, don't
Right.
they?
They point either this way or that way.
Yes.
And you never know whether, if you're pointing that other way, is that the right way? You never know.
And leaders have this facility to say no if they're unhappy, isn't it?
With the yes, you can say no as a leader, yes.
And leaders check whether the plans they subscribe to are likely to work, don't they? That's a bare minimum.
Leaders also have their managers who will come to the leader and say, so far, so good, or so far, things are not going well.
But why
You
didn't
may
you,
not-
why didn't you check? You know, the debate you're having with counsel is precisely that. He's saying to you, but why didn't you go and look lower to see whether the plan is good? Alternatively, whether the plan is being implemented properly. Why didn't you do that?
This is still 2015. What he's quoting is 2015. At that time, the plan has not been implemented. It's 2015. The plan was implemented much, much later than that.
Counsel?
Thank you. Dr. Selebano, that much is clear. Let's go back to page 23 of the interview. And that is from line 20. Line 16. Professor Makhoba says, was that not the original strategy? That is the phased way. Yeah. Is that correct?
Yeah, that was the meaning.
Okay. Then you say, yes, that was the original strategy. So what made you guys change the strategy to then intervene? That is the originals. That is you. Professor Makhoba, yeah. Dr. Diego Selebano, I want to stick to the original strategy. So I want us to go to and debate this original strategy. Tell us, how did you or your implementers departed from the original strategy, or the collective departed from the original strategy?
You are saying during the implementation, what happened where now? I think we had discussed that there was then what was called a marathon. That's where the departure started. That's where the departure was.
Yes.
From the original strategy. Then the marathon came, because the original was clear. It's even here that we are going to a phased approach.
Where did the marathon come from? It came. Again, it's the passive voice. But who brought the marathon there?
Even the name, marathon, I mean, really.
But who made that plan?
The marathon? No, I was not part and parcel of that. I've said it. It was a set. For me, I mean, suddenly there's a plan, and then there's a, like he used the term, then there's a plan to gallop.
HOD, but where did the plan come from to gallop? And suddenly there was a plan. Again, the passive voice. Tell me, somebody made a plan rather than there was a plan.
I should think Manamela and the team, they came up with a plan to gallop the implementation project. Dr. Manamela, sorry, I'm sorry about that.
Yeah.
Dr. Manamela came up with a plan to fast track and called it marathon.
Did they tell you why, HOD?
No, it was not me. They didn't even tell me. I also got surprised that now it was a marathon. So, and then we now know what happened.
So the cancellation of the agreement with Life Esidimeni was not part of the marathon plan?
The cancellation, you see, you will see the plan inside deinstitutionalization. That's where the plan is, the phased plan. It's inside that you deinstitutionalize in a phased manner. But as it would be, then, I mean, stakeholders rightfully objected, and we met, and then there was the marathon plan now.
Where did it come from? That's really what I'm trying to...
I did indicate, Judge,
it's from Dr. Manamela.
Dr. Manamela and the team came up with a marathon plan.
But she's your junior.
It's an implementation phase. It's an implementation phase. I mean, there's Dr. Mazamisa there, there's Dr. Lebete there. It's an implementation phase. That it went wrong, I agree. That it went wrong, I agree. Could anyone have anticipated that? I can't say that.
What do you mean it's an implementation phase? You
got
always knew that in 6 months' time, every single patient had to leave. Every single of your patients, the province's patients, had to leave Life Esidimeni, isn't it so?
That's right.
And you signed that termination letter.
That's right.
And you say that was not the marathon project. The galloping started somewhere thereafter.
Thereafter.
And that was done by Dr. Manamela.
And the collective, the team that works with her.
Did they come to you for your permission?
No, they didn't.
Counsel?
Yes. And the galloping you referred to, that it came later. When specifically later? We know that on 29 September of 2015, you issued the notice whose effective date would be end of March 2016.
Right.
When did this galloping,
Okay.
in relation to this period, come into being?
Yeah. At that time, at the end of March, there was, and I'm saying it again, I think I did say, the contract had terminated after, that was a 6 months period.
Yes.
Then there was, I learned after, that there was a 2 months extension that
3
was
months.
given. Come again?
3 months.
Is it 3 months? You're saying
Yes.
3 months. I thought it was 2 months. That was given, and it was not given by me.
Who
was
gave
not
the
given.
extension?
All I know is not given by me. The discussions as to when and how should it be given, I was not part and parcel of those discussions. I'm not walking away from it, but I'm simply saying I didn't sign any extension after that.
Yeah, but who signed for that extension?
I don't know. I didn't even see it. I didn't see the extension. I wouldn't have known.
And when were
I
you,
only knew after that there was an extension given.
when after were you informed that it was extended by 3 months?
Well, I thought it's 2, you say it's 3. After, like I'm saying, post facto now, when, patients, things had gone wrong and all that, that's
So
when I knew.
that will be in July, August.
July, August.
So according to you, by March or end of March, the project would have been implemented to
Would have
its
started-
finality.
That would have started or actually moving towards its finality, yes. But remember, it's a phased project, the one I'm talking about.
Yes. That is the phase project that we are talking about. Okay, let's get back to that phased project. At the bottom of that 23, page 23, you say, yes, the original strategy was that you were going to reduce by 20%, and by the end of 2020, you will have then it says intervenes. 24 at the top. We will fix that. Yeah, we will fix that. And Professor Makhoba, what brought this change? Because I am going to tell you something that may not surprise you, but I want you to hear that because every member of the department, as soon as you change from that phased approach, they did not buy into the new approach, not a single one. Dr. Selebano, I know, Professor Makhoba, they were all passively resistant. And your answer is, I know. And are you referring to, is this the collective which was passively resistant?
Manamela's team, Dr. Manamela's team, yes.
So they were resistant, but they implemented the project.
They were passive. That's why the term was used as passive resistant.
Could you explain that? I don't understand it.
No, but, well, I can explain what passive resistance means, but it was the prof who said, I'm aware, because I suppose he had spoken to all the managers by that time, and probably privately to him as they were talking, they might have explained that, Prof, we are under a situation where we had to do what we had to do, but we didn't want to do that. That would, I'm surmising, Judge, that that could be the reason why the Prof said they were passive resistance. On my interactions also with them, that's what I also picked up, that they were not happy in the whole
Why
process.
did you people go ahead then? Your troops are not happy. You say you were not in charge of the accelerated program,
No, I was
the
not in
marathon.
charge. I was not.
Who was in charge?
Because there were meetings that they were holding with the MEC and the Mosenokris, the project team. They were holding such meetings. It's
In your absence?
I don't have, Justice, it's not sometimes possible to be in all meetings in the department. So I don't want to stand up here and claim that they were not calling me to
Did
the
the
meetings.
MEC know about the accelerated marathon project?
She knew, yes, she knew.
Did she support it?
It will be difficult
You
for me
said
to
earlier
say.
that she's the one who was pushing for placements at NGOs. Did she support the accelerated project?
It would be a fair, there's a term that you use to say, based on the fact that there was the pressure to move patients and she knew about the project, then it follows that she must have supported it.
Were you part of the resistance, passive resistance, or part of active leadership in this?
Let me give a different approach. It's a pity. Let me give a different approach. After I sat, I don't recall, maybe they've got the email. I sat with Mr. Mosenokhi. And I said, Mr. Mosenokhi said, I'm worried that I'm not sure whether we're going the right direction. I think there's some email that says that. The prof has it.
Yes.
And I said, Mosenokhi, you are a project leader. You are no longer necessarily reporting now to me. You can send that email to the MEC and CC me. You can't do it both ways. You've got to send it to the MEC and CC me. And that's what was done. And I was in that meeting where there was a discussion, and it was.
And what did you do about those concerns of Mr. Mosenokhi? He sets them out. He's your colleague, he's project leader. He has deep doubts about the cogency and the usefulness of the plan. You are copied in, the MEC is written to. What did you do about that?
But let me explain. I mean,
please do.
When Mr. Mosenokhi was, I don't have the details now of that email, but there's nowhere where Mr. Mosenokhi would have said, I'm worried because...
Justice Msanaki, let me refer the witness, assist the witness. It's volume 1, page 90, 16.16.
Yes, but you're going to allow the witness to finish the answer?
Yes, the answer, yes, the witness can finish the answer.
Absolutely, you can put that
Proceed.
to him in a moment, but you must hear the answer, and you can put that to him.
Well, maybe the short answer would be, there's no way where Mr. Mosenokhi said, I'm scared that patients will demise. He didn't say that. He wouldn't have known.
Yeah. Counsel?
Yes. It's volume 1, page 90.2. That is the email by Mosenokhi you referred to. But you'll be taken through this, I think, at a later stage. Let's deal with this issue and complete your evidence in chief. So, what I want to understand, that is from you as the HOD, the accounting officer, the project is now hurried from the original strategy. And what steps did you take yourself to ensure that this does not occur? That is, you do not depart from the original strategy.
I didn't do any, I couldn't stop the project.
You couldn't?
Stop that. Yeah, I couldn't stop it.
Why not? You the accounting officer, you the HOD, why couldn't you stop it?
The project is already being implemented. How do you stop? You say, don't take the patients. Already patients are being moved. I couldn't stop it. I wouldn't be able to stop it. Even though, maybe Justice, I must say, even though you are an HOD, or it doesn't always allow you that you can simply overrule people and work against other people. It's not, I know you are saying you are the HOD, why didn't you do it? I hear you, but it's not as...
Well, you assured me that you are a man of resoluteness when it's necessary.
Yes,
Remember,
I am.
right at the beginning,
I am.
you stopped it. You went from NGO to NGO to take patients out of there and to place them in safer places. You remember?
I did, yes, I did.
So you indeed had the power to stop if it was necessary.
Yeah, but you see, that's post facto justice. It's post facto. And I said by that time there was no interest in meetings now. There is a real situation. And it was looking at my eyes. I had to act.
Dr. Selebano, I don't think you're correct when you say it's a post facto. You have a plan. You sign it off that this plan must proceed according to this thinking or plan. And halfway through or at commencement of that plan, some junior official decides to depart from it. And you, as the leader of the department, what do? You let the junior official to overrule you? Is that what we are saying?
No, I don't know why you are saying that. I never said what you are saying. This is what I said. When I said post facto, I was saying to Justice, when he was saying you are a resolute guy, and you told me that you acted, and why wouldn't you act before? I said, what you are referring to is post facto. I acted after, when the patients had been moved, and there were reports of patients having demised. That's when I moved. That's what I meant by post facto.
So we must accept that you were not aware of what was happening on the ground as the leader of this department.
What do you mean? I don't understand clearly. I need to be sure whether it's not an as... Yeah,
No.
What do you mean?
Yes, what I mean is that you are not aware what was happening with this project implementation.
No, I was aware that patients are being moved. I was aware.
And you are aware how were these patients moved and to where were they moved?
By how you mean the mode of transport? Or what do you mean?
The number of patients moved per day from Life Esidimeni or per month from a particular period of time, including that mode of transport, the destinations to where they will be moved, whether the readiness of those places or destinations to where they are moved, whether this is done in accordance with the plan. At the bare minimum.
You have asked a number of questions. Firstly, you said, was I aware? Yes, I was aware that patients were being moved. I was aware. As to whether now I was aware on Monday who's moving patient to where on Tuesday, I was not aware of that. I wouldn't be aware of that. I wouldn't be aware of that. But I was aware that patients were being moved.
Okay. Now, then, let's move and deal with a different topic. I think your answers are quite clear. I don't need to belabor the point.
From the same thing, Council?
Yeah, no.
Okay.
Yeah, from the same
Okay.
item. And when you'll remember being asked about that is the cancellation of this project and the reasons for the cancellations, for the cancellation of the project. And you made mention of the fiscal pressure and so on. Do you still remember that? Have you had an occasion to consider alternatives to cancelling or moving patients from life as Esidimeni to NGOs? And if there were alternatives you had considered, what were those alternatives?
At that time?
Yes.
No, we didn't discuss.
Prior to cancellation?
No, we didn't discuss. Well, I want you to understand it as we're looking at contracts.
Yes.
Individual contracts. We're saying this is the contract, and this one, we'll cancel this one, we'll do this one. So at that time, there was no different consideration.
Yeah. And in relation to that, let me take you to page page 28.
On the same?
Yeah, of the same
Okay.
document. On page 28, the debate or the discussions between you and Professor Makgoba. Let's start at the top. Say, that is you, Dr. Barney Selebano. Yeah, well, they told you, I'm sure that I requested. Then Professor Makgoba, no, they were just saying to me that no, they were not going to give those names. No, it's not relevant. Let me take you to line 15. Are you on line 15?
Line 15?
Yes. You had discussed that there were several approaches which were suggested to the cancellation. Then in line 15, Professor Makgoba says, they hit a brick wall. Then you respond, yeah, what happened? Yeah, well, I said no, there are many ways that we are thinking on how best to deal with this thing. Then you go on, yes, yeah, one of them was to buy.
Yeah.
Can you explain that into the record? What did you mean by one of them was to buy?
Well, when I was discussing with Mr. Musunuki, that was one of the things. That is around January, February,
Of
March.
which year? 2016.
2016. Yeah, we said, one of the things that we could do, we could just buy there are three life Esidimeni centers. It was Baneng, and then Waverley, and the one in Randfontein. We just said, the best way out of this would be just to buy the three of them, and then we allow government to take over and all that. That's what we meant.
Then you go on there on...
Was that a serious suggestion?
I was with Mr. Musunuki. We were in an office and we were looking at, I think that was during the same time that he said, I wish we could try.
Was that a serious suggestion?
Formal suggestion, no. It was not formal.
Did you have the money to buy?
Incidentally, Judge, on my own, after that, I actually checked. And I checked with the budget people, and they said there's about 100 and something that probably we could have used.
100 and something what?
Million.
Million? Billion?
Yes,
Million?
million, yeah. that we could have used.
So you would have afforded to buy the three life Esidimeni centers.
That's why, yeah, I'm saying subsequent to that, on my own, I just checked and said,
And you found that you had the money to buy if you wanted to.
budget said, yeah, we could scrape around and pick up 100.
Council.
Yes. And in relation to this, that is whether you could have managed to buy and so on. Let me take you to page 30. It's 32. Page 32 of the document, you say, on line 15, Professor Makhoba says, okay. Then you say, so that was our plan. Actually, I can tell you the figure. They wanted 110 for, and we had the money. We had the budget chaps.
Yeah,
The budget chaps will tell you that and it did not happen. Just explain that.
Well, to explain, that's why I said subsequent to that. I checked. I didn't read this. It confirms what, I didn't read it now. It just confirms, well, the number I said 100, actually it's 110.
Well, later, after the cross-examination, there are many counsel who are in the queue, and I'm sure the evidence leader is getting towards the close of his lead. Think about it, and you can think overnight about it.
Okay.
Why, in the scheme of your finances, did you choose to sacrifice the most vulnerable of the people under your care? Even assuming there were fiscal constraints, why did you choose to shut down contracts that would lead to this devastation? Go and think about it, and let's talk about it tomorrow. And I want us to debate the numbers also tomorrow. You are the accounting officer. What was so compelling financially to sacrifice them? And when it hit the fan, you rush and put them back in the same institutions. You understand my conundrum?
I hear you. I hear
You don't
you.
have to answer me now.
I hear you, Judge.
When trouble comes, you rush them back to the same institutions, and you'll have to tell us at what cost did you get them back to the same institutions. So 2 questions. Why the most vulnerable did you choose to sacrifice in your financial constraint? And 2, did you afford to pay the same institutions in order to salvage mental health care users who were survivors? Don't have to answer me now, but it's something I'm interested in, and we can talk about that later or tomorrow. Okay. Council, any
Yes.
further questions?
Can you explain that, the 110? You had the budget.
Well, I said, I said to counsel, after I spoken to Mr. Msenofi, subsequent to that, actually there's a step that I've missed. Subsequent to that, I had a one-on-one with Dr. Mkachwa.
That's correct.
And I said, Dr. Mkachwa, are you able to check what would be the value of your 3 centers? And then he said, okay, I'll check for you. And he took some time, but he checked. And I think he gave me a figure of around, maybe that's why the 100 came first. He gave me the figure around that. Then I went, delays and delays. Then I went to the budget guys. I said, just check if you could find on infrastructure any 110. And that's when they said, yeah, we can scrape around and we would probably find that amount of money.
Yes. And the figure 110 did not come from you. It originated from Dr. Mkhatshwa.
No. I don't recall what Mkhatshwa said. That's why I'm saying he gave me a figure around it.
Around 110.
Yeah, and the figure 110 comes from after then I had made inquiries. But remember, this is around March, April. That's when...
March, April of which year?
16.
2016.
Yeah. That's when Dr. Mkhatshwa said, not the budget people said, yeah, let's say March. We could scrape around 110 or so.
And would you... it is quite clear that that figure, if it was indeed suggested by Dr. Mkhatshwa or whomsoever, that it would be the probable cost of those 3 centers, it would be less than the projected cost of renovations at over 200 million rand.
Yeah, Councillor here, except this is the figure that stayed with me. It's not something that I discussed with the colleagues.
Yes, let me be specific and refer you to the projected costs, for example, of renovations. We have dealt with this,
Yeah.
I'm sure you still remember, on volume 7.
Agree
Yeah.
with what you're saying.
2665 at 224 million rand.
I hear you.
You accept that?
That the figure that I picked up from Mkhatshwa and the budget people, yes, it's less than that.
Okay.
But like I say, I never discussed it with managers.
And then you go on and say in the discussion that this proposal stalled. What do you mean by saying that they stalled?
Maybe that's what I'm saying, that it stalled. I didn't then go and discuss it because already the project was going on that time. So it stalled in that sense, that it's not like it was presented, then it was discussed, and it didn't materialize.
Oh, it stalled at your level?
It's what I got from Mkhatshwa, and the project is running that time. Yeah.
Oh, yes. Then the final point that is a topic I want to address with you. It's in relation to the date when you had an interview with the Health Ombudsman. You had said that you indicated that there were already 36 deaths at the time. You gained knowledge of this around July, August. And the interview was in November. Can you tell us why did your figure remain the same throughout from July until November?
No. That figure was related to the question. There was a question from the Democratic Alliance.
Yes.
And they said, give us how many people passed on. And the figure that I actually got it also from the office of the MEC, was that it's 36, because that's what she got from the managers. So it was not that we're stalling time. And that's, if I recall, with the Professor Malkhapuru, I even almost wanted to say, but it's a time thing. When do you measure it from May to what time? By November, he indicated that actually the number had increased by November, but this one was specifically for that period of time.
Why was it that, being the person who was actively involved in shutting down specific NGOs, were not aware of the exact number of deaths in November when you were interviewed by the professor? No,
I don't know why you are saying I'm not aware. I'm saying my understanding was to respond to the specific period, May to August or so. That's the response I was giving. In relation to the DA question, I think there is that question. I don't know, I may not have it now. But there was that question that was asked by TA. So I was specifically responding to that type of question.
Do you still recall Professor Makhoba telling you that the number of deaths at the time it was 78 or 70? And your figure was still at 36.
Well, we then, with the prof, with due respect to the prof, he said, no, the number is this. And I said, okay, prof, but here I was referring to this period. And he said, no. And I said, prof, are you also taking all other? He said, no, my mandate, I recall that. I hope my memory is still correct. That he said, no, my mandate is not only the patient from life Esidimeni, it's all the mental health patients. So that was, I recall that type of discussion with the prof.
Yes. And in fact, I think at the time when you gained knowledge, apparently gained knowledge in July, the number was in excess of the 36 which you had referred to.
But if the managers have given the number 36, it becomes difficult, and that number came from the officer of the MEC. It becomes very difficult to give a different number. They are the ones who know.
For example, at Precious Angel, there were a number of patients. That is why you closed it.
I don't know what you mean.
I'm saying
I think you must give the witness the number if you want to put it to the witness.
Yes.
So that he can respond to the assertion properly.
Let me give you the total number of deaths, I think, at the time when, in July, for example. Just calculate this. What I want to know, I think, from you, because I think it appears to me that throughout in your evidence, you knew nothing about the project, including the number of deaths, despite the fact that you were involved in closing down these institutions. Why was that so?
Yeah. But you are talking about two eras here. There's an era before, and that's where you are asking me that I was involved. And there's an era after the deaths had occurred. So if you separate, I was active in this era where, and I explained why it happened that I had to close some of the NGOs, your Precious Angel and the others. I had to close them. And I explained that I had this discussion with the minister, and the mandate was clear. Go and close those NGOs.
Yes.
No, but that's not the question, Doctor. The question is, why are you unaware of the deaths that happened or that occurred at NGOs? Why are your numbers so misaligned with what we know to have happened?
I think the misalignment comes from a parliamentary question, which said there was a parliamentary question, and that this is the number that was given by
You
the
accept
officials.
that under the Marathon Project, 143 people died?
As of now.
Yes.
Yes, I've been following the newspapers.
And you have seen Professor Makhoba's report in that regard. I'm sure it will be put to you. I don't have to do it now. There are many competent advocates here who will ask you the question. But many,
I missed you, Justice.
I say, by the time you sprung up to action and rushed to close
The NGOs.
Precious Angels, many people who were transferred under the order of your signature had died. And council wants to know, why don't you know these numbers? Why wasn't there a system to track the consequences of your decision?
I hear you. I understand what you're saying. You're saying why was there was no system to track that. There was no system to track, because NGOs are around Gauteng, and you depend on them. I think that's what I asked some of the managers. How do you work out what's happening in an NGO, what's going on and all that? They said, no, we also, that's what they said. I don't recall who in particular, but I was in.
Let's break it down. There was no tracking system.
There was no tracking system. There was no tracking
Right.
system.
2, you had no mechanism to hold those who report to you accountable. You had no mechanism for them to tell you, 5 people had died at Precious Angel. No, 7 at Siabadinga. No, whatever the numbers are, they're exact and they'll be put to you in a moment.
No.
So you had no such system.
That would be the tracking system. I agree.
Yes.
There was no such way of knowing that so many on maybe like, let me also add to what you are saying, on real time to say.
And what did you
what's
think?
happening.
What would happen to these corpses? There's no departmental concern and systems, and people are dying. What do you think happens to their remains? They're under your care.
Some of the patients who passed away, it's not a difficult question, but it's painful. Patients, some of them passed away in hospitals, and as far as I know, they were kept in the hospital.
Many others died at NGOs. Precious Angel is one such example. Many died right there.
Yeah, I know that. I know that.
You know that, isn't it?
Yeah, I know that.
And they had to run at a butchery to store bodies because there was no system from your department on how to deal with the people you had to look after. Anyway, there'll be many questions on that. You don't have to reply to me now. Any more questions, Councillor?
Yeah. Let me take you to LR 57 on the numbers. It's on page 8 of the document. Page 8. Are you on page 8?
Yeah, I'm on page 8.
Are you there? Yes. The document there, it's described as total death per facility and period 2016-2017. It's a report by Professor Makhoba, which he compiled in response to certain questions in this hearing. And the column on the right, that is on the left, it reflects months, that is January 2016 until June 2017. Do you see that?
The left column, yes, I see.
Yeah, on the left.
I can see the months.
Yeah, the months. And you'll see that at the end of July, our calculation there is that already the patients who died, there were 51 in number. And if we add August, there were 78 already. And by November, there were even more.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yes. And you can see that from Precious Angels, that they have 7 plus 8 plus 2, then there's 3 and so on. You see, it's 20 in total who died from Precious Angels. And you close them in response to this death according to your evidence. So what I want to know is that why didn't you know?
Yeah, well, like I was explaining to the judge, when you don't have a system, you don't have a system. So real time is you can't capture what is happening. And that is why I was saying the number that I gave was the number that the officials had given. I'm not blaming them. I'm not pushing anything to them. You're right, maybe I should have known, or the department should have known and had a mechanism to track what is happening. It was not there. These are lessons again. These are lessons.
And when you learned of these tragedies, what steps did you take, corrective steps against your officials?
You mean in terms of maybe disciplinary process and all that?
Correct.
Well, I never had the opportunity, honestly, to even start thinking of disciplinary hearings. And yeah, if probably, I don't know, but I'm saying if given the same opportunity, I would have also insisted on getting an over and above what the Ombuds was doing, to get an opportunity to do an investigation and also see really what is it that went wrong.
When you moved mental health care users from NGOs as you shut them down, who did you hold accountable for those placements?
You mean, if I take out a patient from patients from Preacher's Angel and take them to somewhere else,
On your
did
evidence,
I hold?
you shut down a number of NGOs,
Yeah.
and you took patients on your evidence to other safer places. Who did you hold to account
At that time, no.
for those improper?
No, no one
Placements.
at that time. No one at that time. Remember, at that time, if I'm not mistaken, already the Ombuds was conducting some investigation.
No, that wasn't it. When did you do this? Didn't you do this in July?
July, August, some of the years.
And the Ombuds
I can't.
kicked in when?
I don't recall well. I'm not too sure.
Yeah, but what? You know its importance,
I know.
Dr. Selebano. And you, the leader, you, the HOD, you control the money in the department, you're the accounting officer, and something like this goes wrong. And you have to go back and renegotiate contracts with entities that you had shut down to take patients back. Who did you hold to account for those missteps?
During my time before the suspension, I didn't go and renegotiate the contract with Esidimeni. What I did, I just took them to our facilities. Your question again is, who did I hold accountable at that time? No one. I cannot point anybody that I said, I'm going to discipline you. I can't point that person. But at that time, again, like I'm saying, I'm not too sure, maybe.
Were there people who were worthy of discipline?
I think it's not whether you are worthy of discipline or not. The process itself will unfold whether you are or you are not. But I would have taken people.
No, but you head of department, and here is a disastrous thing that has happened under your care and charge. Did you hold any of your officers accountable?
Yes, Justice. I said at that time I didn't. But then your question was, are there people who were worthy? I said, I wouldn't even consider that. I would just have said, that is now going back. I would just have said, listen, this is what has happened. We are now going through a process. I wouldn't even check whether maybe this one is worthy or not. I would just say we're going through a process, and it is the outcome of the investigation and the disciplinary hearing that would make that determination.
Even on your number of 36 corpses, that should have got a senior administrator like you on the edge of his chair, isn't it?
Yes, you're right. But remember, Justice, this is the number that you have. And then you pick up later that, like Council was showing. And actually I knew that much later that the numbers were not corresponding. I know that. The numbers were not corresponding. We're getting bits and pieces of information that was not helpful. So it's correct. But at that time, you have this number.
Didn't you go out? Who caused this? How did it happen? I signed off on a cancellation. Look at these deaths. Who caused them and who must account? Didn't you go like that?
No. What happened immediately after that? It was that the MEC had a discussion, and that's what she told me. She had a discussion with the minister, and it was agreed that freeze, let's start a process with the ombuds. That's how it started.
Thank you, Justice. The final question is, when were you suspended?
I think the third, the report came on the 1st of February, and 2-3 days later I was suspended.
2017.
2017.
2017.
And you took no steps until then?
You mean until that time?
Yes, against any of the officials.
But you see, I mean, also remember that was when the Ombuds report had not been released by that time. So I don't know if you would say, I don't know if I could have done that, a parallel process again. I don't know.
No. What I'm just saying is that you were instructed by the minister way back then to close down, according to your evidence, because there were deaths and so on. Surely, if there's nothing wrong with those NGO, there will be those deaths. Do you agree with me?
No, I don't know. Yeah, well,
you had to find out why were those deaths, and you had to find out why were those NGO unsuitable, and we had to find out why patients were sent to unsuitable NGOs. So that's what I want to find out from you, that prior to, that is, your suspension, you took no steps at all to find out why was this thing happening.
That's why I'm saying there was a process that the Ombuds had embarked on. Are you saying that I was going to go on a parallel process again? I don't know if I would have gone on a parallel process because the Ombud was on a process also to do exactly what you're saying.
But the Ombud was involved at a later stage than that.
So maybe then it's an omission on my side. You are saying immediately around September, October. I don't recall well when did the Ombud come in. I thought he came in much earlier than that.
Okay. Thank you, Justice Msanek. I don't have anything else to add.
Thank you, Counsel. Thank you so much. Advocate Hassan.
Thank you, Justice.
The day is young. It's only 4 p.m.
I agree. Good afternoon, Dr. Selebano.
Hi, Counsel. Adil.
My name is Adila Hassam, and I'm one of the members of the legal team that represents the families of about 65 deceased in these proceedings. Thank you for making yourself available today.
Thank you.
I'd like to begin with the termination of the contract. And I know that some of these questions have been canvassed with you by my learned friend, but I am going to go over some of that terrain again. So if we could begin with the termination of the contract with Life Esidimeni. And that was on 29 September 2015. And you've said that you were advised to sign the letter. Is that right?
That's the processes inside the department, yes.
Did you read the contents of the letter and agree to the contents before you signed it?
Yes, I read what before I signed, yes, I read.
So you were in support of the decision to terminate?
It was a collective decision, and we all agreed, and I signed, yes.
But ultimately, whose decision was it to terminate the contract?
Well, Now that it was my signature, it will be my decision.
Once you've signed it, it's your decision, correct?
And on behalf of the department,
Yes, in your position as a head of department.
yes.
Yes. And you say you did so because of fiscal pressure.
Amongst the canvassed issues, yes.
You did so because you needed to cut costs.
To manage costs.
You needed to reduce costs.
Maybe, let me say yes.
You needed to reduce costs. And in order to reduce costs, you cut essential health services. Isn't that so?
I don't know what you mean by essential health services.
You cut health services that were being provided to patients in the province, correct?
No, but you got, through you, Justice, when you say essential services, I mean emergency services is essential services. We didn't cut that.
I'm talking about the services that were being provided to mental health care users at Life Esidimeni.
So that's why when you said, okay. Now, I thought when you say essential services, you meant maybe emergency medical services.
No, council is asking about essential services, not emergency services.
No, I was, through you again, Chair.
Yes, certainly.
Essential services is inside essential services. You would find things like your emergency services. So that's what I misunderstood.
Yes,
now I
okay.
understand. If she
It's a
says,
term of art, essential services. I understand.
I beg your pardon?
I understand, I think, where you are coming from. Essential services, you're referring to a term of art that's often used in labor law, essential services. Is that right?
Well, I'm not.
No. Look,
No.
Now, I thought I was trying to help you out, but I'm going to stop trying to help you out.
The
I'm
doctor talking to a lawyer and you're on cross purposes. But in any event, put your question and let's
The
get
question is in relation to health services that were being provided to mental health care users at Life Esidimeni.
Okay.
So my question is, do you agree that in the effort to reduce costs, those services to those patients were reduced?
Yes.
And are you aware that are you aware of Section 27 of the Constitution?
Yeah, I am. I'm aware of that. The
And-
right to health. Yeah.
Yes. And do you understand the obligations under Section 27 of the Constitution?
Bestowed on the state. Yes, I understand.
What do you consider to be the obligations under Section
It is
27?
the right to health. Really, the summary is that the state has an obligation to ensure that citizens have access to health and health
And
services.
that's correct. And it's more than ensuring that they do have access, but also where access is currently being provided, not to take away those services. Would you agree?
If you are quoting it, I wouldn't have any reason to differ with
It's
it.
it's not complicated what council
Yeah.
is asking you.
Now,
Every right has a positive obligation and a negative obligation. The positive requires you to do certain things, grant access to health care. The negative requires the state not to interfere with or take away existing access to health care. So that is the negative side of the right. And the positive side is to give. The negative is not to take away.
I understand.
I'll just help you.
understand.
Go ahead, Councillor.
Thank you,
understand.
Justice. Did you at the time understand the right in that way?
At that time,
Yes.
no, I didn't understand that way.
Why not?
You,
I'm asking you specifically about Section 27 just before you answer, because that is the right that is most closely related to your function in government. There are many rights that I will be putting to you throughout throughout my cross-examination. But on this one, why did you not know that?
you see, you are saying there was a reduction, and I said, oh, because you see, The aim was not to take away the right. As I understood it then, the aim was when you move the patients to an NGO, if you recall what I said, my understanding was, I said to the managers, you must provide exactly the same service that they got at Life Esidimeni, if not more. That's how I
But
understood.
for less money.
It's an economics issue that we then stretch the rent to still meet the same, to get the same value.
And you were persuaded that by stretching the rand, you could be able to provide the same level of services?
Yes, I mean, if you think differently again, and I'm not, I want to say it up front, Justice, that I'm not defending the wrong things that happened. Council has asked me my thinking, and I've also gone to think again what was inside there. Life Esidimeni, they were offering a broad service in terms of psychiatric, medical care. They would have OTs, they would have some psychologists and all that. Now, the thinking was that the state can still offer this, but then we will offer them when people are at NGOs. That was the thinking. So, in a way, it was not like we are going to reduce what has been offered. It was just to say, now instead of Life Esidimeni would hire those services from psychiatrists, we have them already. So they will be the ones that, if I'm to give a nearer example to yourself, if you are in Atteridgeville, then you will access the psychiatric services that you would get from either Kalafong, or the nearest one would be your Pretoria West. That was the thinking at that time. So the reduction was not there to say, well, now just going to reduce. That was the thinking then.
So we've heard evidence that it costs 320 Rand per patient per day at Life Esidimeni. And at the NGOs, it would cost the department 112 Rand per patient per day. And you, on your economic calculation, were of the view that within that amount of money, you would be able to provide the same level of services as Life Esidimeni.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. You said 220. I always thought that it was about 380. That's what I thought.
I said 320.
Or 320. Okay.
So, but I'll take your figure, 380 versus 112.
Yeah, the figure, I will just talk to the principle. Like I'm
No,
saying.
I actually would like you to speak to the figure, because and the reason I'm asking you this is we're talking about the termination of the contract. One very significant reason for termination of the contract, according to your evidence, is fiscal pressure, correct?
Okay.
So the numbers count. So 380 versus 112. Now you can answer.
You see, in the 380, what has been calculated inside that 380 is what I told you, that there will be doctors, OTs, psychologists, and all that. So they are incorporated in that 380 per day.
Can we use the correct figure, though? It's 320.
It's 320, okay.
Yeah.
I'll take the figure.
Very well.
So in that figure, that would be the cost that would have been calculated, would include that. So the thinking was that because how does Life Esidimeni come to that? They work on that cost because they know that we will hire the psychiatrist to come and we will pay the psychiatrist as Life Esidimeni, as Life Health Care. We will hire the OT and we'll pay that OT. But we are saying, the thinking was that already in the department, they are already picking up a salary. The psychiatrists, that was the thinking. The psychiatrists, the OTs, they are already picking up a salary. We will just then have a mechanism of allowing them to, over and above their duties, to go and check the patients. For instance, in districts, there are district psychiatrists. and they would be the ones actually planning that type of thing. That was the thinking.
I see. So your plan was that the patients would go to NGOs, and then from NGOs they would be taken to state facilities to receive medical care
Yeah,
and
either
treatment.
way, either you take them or you visit.
That was the plan.
That was the thinking, yes.
And as far as physical environment and food and nutrition goes, what was your plan there?
Well, the physical environment, it would then fall into the type of NGO. That is, I'm still talking about the thinking that you would have an ideal, proper NGO that would, some of the things that I now know is that they should have a meal chart. They should have a chart that shows what are the activities that the patients should get involved in, and some such things. That was the information I had, and the thinking at that time. So the way I know it was that is why it was said it's a subsidy more than it's like paying, because
Right.
the impression was that, I don't know where it comes from, Justice. These are some of the practices that have been happening over years, that some of the NGOs would have sponsors, and that's why if they have a sponsor, then we put in a subsidy. That was the thinking.
So you had a plan in place before you terminated the contract. That's what you're saying. You're saying there was a plan. We knew that it was 320 Rand, but what your thinking was to do it this other way, using state resources and so on. You had a plan, and that's why you terminated the contract.
Yeah, because, I mean, it's a big step to terminate a contract. You need to know and be assured that what is going to happen to the patients. And that's when I got to know at that time that, no, this is how it happens.
Right.
It will
So
be-
now I'm glad
yeah.
to hear you say that, but I'm puzzled to hear you saying that you had a plan. And I'd like you to have a look at page 2824, please, and that is on file 8.
I don't have. File 8 is that. 2824.
2824.
Okay.
That's the last page of the document that is entitled Project Plan. I'm just, for the record, it's called Project Plan, Termination of Contract Relationship between Gauteng Department of Health and Life Esidimeni and Upscaling Community-Based Mental Health Services in the province. That was the plan, correct?
I can say 2824. Is that the
Yeah.
one where it says number 10 conclusions?
Yes.
Okay.
So 2824 is the last page of that plan.
Okay.
And you've just said that there was a plan in place.
All
By
right.
the time you terminated the contract. And we already know that you terminated the contract on 29 September 2015, correct?
I don't understand.
I'm just confirming that you terminated the contract on 29 September 2015.
Okay, yeah, before then, okay, let me say
It's
yes.
dated 29 September 2015, the
That's
date
right.
of your termination letter.
Okay, yes.
This plan was only compiled on a day later, 30 September 2015. Do you see that?
I'm not following you.
It
That's
says compiled by
Manamela.
Dr. Manamela
30
on
September.
30 September 2015.
All right.
And the last signature is your signature, is that so?
That's right.
And that's your approval.
That's right.
And what is the date of your signature?
14 October.
What year?
Should be 20. No, it's an error here. Shouldn't be. No.
It's an error.
It can't be 2016.
It says 2016. Are you saying that's an
It's
incorrect
error.
date?
Yeah, if you look at the 30 September 2015.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Yes.
The date is an error.
it's an error.
I'm not
Even the
sure of that.
Ombudsman's report highlights that error.
No, it's an error.
It should
And
be-
then, sorry, and then Mr. Masanoki also signed it in 2016. Was also an error.
No, yeah, it's an error. I mean, it's an error. It was compiled on the 2015, and I signed it. At that
Both
time.
of you signed it incorrectly. Is that what you're saying?
I can just say only that it's an error because I signed this plan in 2015.
Okay. So you signed it in October 2015 on your version.
That's right.
And so this was after the termination of the contract.
After the signing off, remember, it had 6 months to go, that contract.
Now, I understand that, but at the point at which you put your signature on the termination, the train had left the station. Things now needed to happen. Wouldn't you agree? You
Well-
had 6 months within which to make things happen.
Yeah, you are making it mechanical as if things just have to happen that way. I mean, I told the justice that there was a collective discussion. There was discussions. As to when you see the paperwork that came after, it doesn't tell you about the discussion that happened before.
It doesn't matter whether there were discussions. My concern is, you see, nothing can happen until you've approved it. That's what you've said earlier. Once you approve the document, then the instructions follow.
In a legal sense, that's what you are saying. I agree with you. If I've not approved something, it is not legally binding.
No,
But-
it's not about a question of legally binding. Sorry, Dr. Selebano, maybe we are at cross purposes.
Yeah,
You've earlier said that you make a decision and then your team implements.
In the ordinary
You have
course
to
of-
sign off. You have to approve what then will follow. Am I right? They couldn't make a plan on their own,
They did.
but you'd had to approve it. Isn't that so?
Well, they did make the plan, and the plan was presented to the collective.
And you
management-
approved it in October.
Yeah, 14 October, I think, yeah.
So you approved it after you terminated the contract. That's all I'm trying to establish.
Let me explain what had happened before.
Well, do you want to answer the question and then explain? Did you approve after termination of the contract?
I hear
That
you,
will help to answer, and you may very well explain.
Justice, if you just please bear with me so that I
Yes.
can explain, then I'm not going away from the question.
Okay.
Before the 6-month contract, there had been indications. In fact, there's a letter that we wrote to Life Esidimeni to say we are terminating the contract long before I actually did the signing. I signed that letter. And they came back through the legal department, our legal department, and said, no, you can't. You cannot do that. And they spoke with the legal department. But that time, I think we're not standing still. But then they actually said, you got to give us 6 months notice of termination. Otherwise, we will take you to court. So that is the important part, that discussion of termination had long started. So it was not something that was thought after signing, then we start.
No, but the
signing.
question is quite crisp, and just go back to it. Did you approve the plan after you had signed the letter of termination?
Well, I thought I'm explaining. Yes, I did.
Yeah.
But there's that explanation that I gave that there had been work that was being done
To develop the plan.
to work on the plan, yes.
Yes, I understand that. And then you approved it in October,
Yes.
a month after you had terminated the contract.
Was it a month?
According to you
Not
signed
the
it
end of
in-
September. The termination, was it not at the end of September of the contract? I don't have
So
the
it was
documents.
2 weeks after, is
I
that what
don't
you're
have-
saying?
I don't have the
You don't remember when you terminated the contract, but you do remember this was a 2015 signature, not 2016.
29 September 2015, you terminated.
that was the, yes, 14 days later then, yeah.
You then approved the plan.
Yes.
And then implementation of the plan begin immediately?
Well, it depends. You know, I'm trying to follow. When you say implementation of the plan, you mean movement of patients? No.
I mean
it didn't.
implementation of the plan that you approved and everything that is in the plan.
Okay, maybe let me put it this way. Then, by just approving it, everything was kicked into motion.
Thank you very much. That's what I'm trying to get you to say. So once you approved it, then things could get into motion. Now, you said again that this was part of fiscal pressure, and you referred to the fact that Treasury had also been warning and advising that there needed to be a containment of costs. Is that right?
That's right.
Was it Treasury's instruction what services you should cut?
No,
what programs you should cut?
No, ordinarily they wouldn't do that. They were not doing it only to health. They were doing it to the whole province.
That's fine.
Yeah, so they
My
wouldn't...
question is in relation to health.
They wouldn't... Yeah, but I'm trying to give you a broader picture that the fiscus is not health only.
I
It's the
understand what the
province.
fiscus is. My question is, was it an instruction from Treasury that you should cut certain
No.
programs?
It was not an instruction from Treasury.
It was not an instruction from Treasury that you should cut
they were
this program. Is that so?
This program, no.
It wasn't an
They
instruction
wouldn't,
from
they
Treasury.
wouldn't tell us, cut this one, cut that one. It didn't
So the
work that way.
decision to terminate this was yours,
Was a departmental decision.
and ultimately yours once you signed the termination.
If you say so, yes.
Thank you. So that took place on the 29th September 2015. And you say that you were persuaded that this was the right thing to do, right?
Of course.
And you were not, at that time, concerned that there would be a violation of the rights of the mental health care users.
I wouldn't have known, yes.
And did you, at that time, try to cut any other areas, costs in any other areas?
Yes.
Non-core?
Non-core. Selby, there was Selby, I don't know, I'm trying to work out the dates. There was a Selby contract with clinics that was also cut. Yeah.
But would that not be a core cost?
We distributed, it was core, I mean, the patient care is core business of health.
So, Mike, that's right. And so the question is, did you try to cut costs in any area that was not about patient care and service to the community?
Not that, I think I could think of other contracts like, let me tell you how you work on management of costs.
The question is, it's going to help if we try and listen to it and give an answer. The question is, did you cut areas which are non-core?
I can't immediately, while now, think of any other thing that was non-core.
Now let's go to Selby just a little bit. Selby gave care to what category of patients?
It was, we would call them your step down, not step down, your minimal care type of patients. Let me explain what this means. You are at Charlotte Macleod, it's a tertiary, it's a central hospital. After 5 days or so, you're fine, but we are not comfortable to let you go home. So instead of keeping you in a bed, because our beds, the expense of beds go according to the hospitals. So what we then did, I found it there also, just as that contract, that then the patients would be transferred to Selby.
Were they of a particular category of ill health?
It would, you'd want to take patients who are almost ready for discharge. It would be your acute patients, let me put
Let's
it
go
that
back
way.
to counsel. Anyway, the question was, that is core business of your department, isn't it?
Yeah, that's cool.
Counsel?
Sorry, Dr. Selebano, I'm not sure I got the answer correctly as to what non-core costs were cut.
Yeah. Some of the non-core costs that were cut, we actually we're not replacing posts. Now I'm thinking about it. We said we can't be replacing posts. We curtailed the usage of cell phones and all that. We curtailed those type of, we literally almost stopped even buying your IT, your computer, the laptop ones, and said we may have to revert to the desktop. So we did a lot of those things. But remember also in health, I did say to you that core is patient services. The support that comes there, I mean, a cleaner in health, it's actually important, and we have actually agreed that they will be described also as core. So when in a tight corner, when you don't replace a cleaner, you're creating problems. When you don't replace a porter, you're creating problems. So we're in that situation. So those are some of the non-core that we cut
So
on.
do you consider that to be non-core or core costs? I'm finding it hard to follow because you said a cleaner would be core.
That's why I'm saying in health,
Yes.
you didn't want to classify any other health worker or professional as core or non-core, because we have argued that actually a cleaner in a hospital is not your normal cleaner like in a mall. It's a critical.
So you wouldn't have cut costs when it comes to cleaners because,
We're not replacing some of the posts.
and that would be a core cost, wouldn't it?
That's why I'm saying to you, it's difficult in your understanding or in a different definition, that would be non-core. But we argue that actually there is nothing non-core in health. All of it is core.
So, but you did cut this program and you did see, just confirming, you did say you thought it was appropriate to cut and to terminate this contract.
That was the thinking that time.
Which other hospital's contract did you terminate within the same financial year?
No, we didn't have a lot of outsourced services. We didn't have.
We know from the evidence Selby was earlier, isn't
Yes, it was earlier, and then,
Yes.
but
So in the year that you decided to shut down Life Esidimeni, which other contract that provided core services to patients did you terminate?
I'm trying to think, I can't recall of any contract. The outsourced service that I recall well was Selby and Life Esidimeni.
Thank you, Justice. So just to repeat, I was saying that you were satisfied that this was an appropriate move, this was an appropriate measure.
At that time, it was the right thing to do.
And this was so despite the fact that you had been warned that, in fact, it would be a bad thing to do.
Well, I've said it that there were meetings. I met with Section 27, SADC.
This is before then, so let me take you there. If you could have regard to the annexures to the Ombuds report.
Okay.
It's in the exhibits file, and it'll be ELA 2.
Okay. I have it.
Could you please turn to Annexure 8A?
Ooh. I don't know how to work my way here. Oh, these are. Annexure
8A.
or 4A, 6C. Okay.
Have we familiarized the witness with the document?
Yeah,
As soon as he
I'm
finds
already-
it.
I'm really lost here. I'm trying-
8A.
It's written, there's something LA.
Obakeng will assist you.
You are given a bundle of exhibits marked Ella. You are given a bundle of exhibits, documents handed in this hearing, marked Ella 1 to whatever. You are being referred to Ella.
Annexure 8A. It might be page 41 of the paginated version.
Okay. All right, yes, I have it.
And this is a memorandum that's addressed to Dr. Manamela and copied to you. Correct?
That's right.
And it's from the clinical heads, Gauteng Specialized Psychiatric Hospitals, heads of psychiatric departments or units, Gauteng Central Hospitals and academic departments.
That's right.
Do you see that?
I see that.
And it's dated 28 April 2015.
That's right.
And this is the first written warning that we have on record to the Gauteng department. And it's quite an important warning because it comes from your own psychiatrists and your own hospital heads. So this was 28 April 2015.
All right.
And the purpose of this memorandum is stated in paragraph 1. And it says to outline serious concerns related to the reduction of beds at the Life Esidimeni hospitals in Gauteng and to request an urgent meeting with the Honorable MEC. Do you see that?
I can see that. I can see that.
And are you familiar with this document? Have you seen it before?
Now that it was CC to me, probably I have seen the document.
You don't recall seeing this before? Or what do you mean by probably?
It's 2015. It's very difficult to recall what emails you got. It was on email. You don't ordinarily get lots and lots.
But you would have received it, are you saying?
That's
so?
why I'm saying
You would have read it?
I would have read it. I would have read it.
So in paragraph 3, the clinicians refer to the process of deinstitutionalization. And they say that the above decision, by which they mean the reduction of beds at Life Esidimeni, seems to be premised on a view that persons with severe chronic mental illness receiving long-term hospital-based care, treatment, and rehabilitation can be suddenly discharged home or into community residential care en masse. Such an approach is unfortunately impractical. Good clinical practice in this context obliges a gradual and individualized discharge process that addresses both the health and social needs of each patient, thus facilitating the gradual reintegration of such patients into the community. Did you agree with that understanding of the clinicians?
Did I agree with them, the psychiatrists?
Yes, did you agree with the statements
They are
in this paragraph?
specialists. They are specialists, and I wouldn't argue with them.
They go on to say then that furthermore, as clearly outlined in our National Mental Health Policy Framework and Strategic Plan 2013 to 2020, successful deinstitutionalization requires, among others, the availability of adequate community residential and daycare facilities, and the scaling up of community mental health services. There is a grave shortage of community residential and daycare facilities in Gauteng, and the small number of remaining beds are required for patients from all levels of care on an ongoing basis. Did you take issue with that? That maybe they were incorrect, or did you agree?
They are specialists, like I said. It would be out of order for me to start arguing with professors.
It would have been
In
out
medicine,
of, it would have
we
been out
don't
of
do
order for
that.
you to disagree. If we could turn over the page to paragraph 6, where they deal with particularly Gauteng and the Gauteng experience. The last paragraph, and which is on page 3 of the document. The last paragraph reads as follows: en masse discharges or transfers from Life Esidimeni have previously been attempted. An example cited at the meeting was the transfer of 40 patients with physical and intellectual disability to the Kwezi Lokuza NGO in Esidimeni in 2009. Owing to capacity limitations at this NGO and the inability of the patients to adapt to the new environment, the Departments of Social Development and Health requested Life Esidimeni to accept them back within 2 months. What's your comment on that?
Well, my comment would be I wouldn't know, because I think I've read quickly through it. This was done in 2009. Maybe I was not, yes, at that time I was not in the department.
But when you read this letter in 2015, did it raise any alarm bells for you?
I can't recall, honestly. I can't recall.
In fact, Dr. Mkachwa, who testified before these proceedings, referred to this example, and his evidence was that patients died in that move. And those who didn't were returned, and when they were returned to Life Esidimeni, they were already severely dehydrated and malnourished. So the point that the clinicians...
nodding. Can we have your answer on record? What is your response to that?
To what Dr. Mkachwa said?
Yes.
That patients were returned. Like I'm saying, it was in 2009, Judge. I was not in the department.
No, counsel is asking about your response when you read it in 2015.
I did indicate that I can't. I don't remember what was my response to that at that time. I can't recall. But now I understand it now when I read it.
But why can't you recall such a salutary warning that if you moved people, there are certain consequences, and past experience has shown that some may die? Why wasn't this an important
No.
thing?
I didn't say it was not important.
But you don't remember it?
I don't recall it. If I recall it, I will never walk away from it. I will say I recall it. If I don't, I will have to say that I don't.
But then, was it something that remained with you?
At that time.
That there's a risk of taking patients out, it was tried before, and that they might have their lives endangered?
Yeah, but also, I hear you, Justice, but also remember, this letter actually explains, the way I read it, I've been quickly reading it again. It explains what the department should have done at that time, and we didn't do that. That's how I understand this letter. Yeah.
That's right. It was, as I said, it's the first written warning we have on record. Whether there are others, we don't know. But this was 28 April 2015. And what's important about it is that it's a long and detailed and very considered letter from the most eminent public health professionals in our country. They're the heads, clinical heads of your hospitals.
Yes. I agree.
And they are advising you in relation to this project.
Yes, I agree. I agree.
And one of the things they say to you, the first thing that I put to you was that they're saying, be careful on this process. What I read to you earlier, that it requires a gradual and individualized discharge process that addresses both the health and social needs of each patient. That's the first thing.
Agreed.
Which means every patient has a right. Every patient's rights needs to be taken into account. Would you agree?
Of course, patients are different.
Then the contradistinction is with the en masse discharge,
Yeah.
where individual needs of the patients are not considered. You agree?
Fair, fair, yeah.
So that was the first warning. The second warning is they say to you, in any event, you've done this before and it failed. Meaning the department. I'm not saying
The
you
department,
yourself,
yes.
I'm saying the department has done
That's
it
right,
before.
yeah.
Do you agree? And it failed.
The department, yes.
And my question is, what was your response when you read this?
That's why I'm saying the justice was saying, why can't I recall it? I don't recall it, and I'm not being evasive. I just don't recall it. If I did justice, I would say I recall it, and I would tell you how I felt.
And okay, that's in relation to the previous move, the previous attempt.
Or was it water off a duck's back?
I don't, meaning justice?
Meaning you had made a decision and these inputs, these warnings may find no place in your plan of action.
When I see the, yes, when I see the date, 26 April, I think by that time, really, the decision, even for me to sign, I had not done that, if I look at it well.
No, you hadn't done that.
I hadn't done that, yeah.
But you did it after you received the warning. That's what is so important, is that these warnings were coming to you before you signed the termination letter.
Yeah, that's true.
The next danger they point out to you is in paragraph 7. And they try to say to you, it deals with financial implications. It says the following: we were informed that the main reason for the accelerated discharge of patients from Life Esidimeni is to reduce healthcare costs and thus contribute to expenditure reduction within the provincial government. As discussed in the meeting, we respectfully submit that the process being followed will in fact escalate and not reduce direct and indirect healthcare costs. The reasons can be summarized as follows. And then they set out their reasons in detail. What did you make of that when you read it? In other words, now they're talking about costs and saying, in fact, this is going to have the opposite effect.
Yeah, but I did indicate, with due respect, Council, that the letter was CC'd to me. I don't deny it, on my email. And I didn't even want to say whether I received it or not. It's immaterial. It was CC'd to me. But I'm saying I do not recall the details of this letter. So it's not easy for me to tell you how I see. But I understand, as I read it now, I understand the letter now. I understand it now.
Before I started taking you through the contents of the letter, I asked if you would have read the letter, and you said yes.
I said most probably.
You don't know whether you read this letter or not. Is that what you're saying?
I don't.
See, there are two things. Either you read the letter and you read it, but you can't remember your response to some of the specifics, or you can't recall reading the letter at all. Which one is it?
I can't recall reading the letter. Therefore, I can't then even work on the response.
So, and you were not aware of any of these concerns at the time. Is that what you're saying?
These concerns, Dr. Madihwe was part of the team that worked after the termination. He and other professors, Musa, they were part of the team. And there was another professor from...
Yes, and they tried to
Scopus.
prevent what they could see coming down the track, the termination of the contract.
Well, in the meetings where I was with Dr. Madiche and the other professors, I don't know if maybe separately with the other officials they were, but in where I was, they didn't robustly come out as saying, stop this process. I'm not accusing them of anything.
Could they have been any more robust than they are in this letter? And in writing?
Council, you are going to the letter, but I did indicate that with the letter, I can't recall the letter. So I'm saying in the meetings I was with Dr. Madiche, and Dr. Sokutela was there also. And
Okay,
Prof,
I'm not asking, I am asking about the letter because
yeah,
it is important that it happened before the contract was terminated. Before I leave the letter, I'd just like to point out one last thing that they state in the letter, and that's in the conclusion, and it's in the second paragraph. It says, we note that this decision will have a devastating impact on the health and social well-being of mental health care users, the healthcare system, and members of the community. We also note that this decision will likely escalate healthcare costs in our province. So this is quite strong language that's coming from the clinicians. Devastating impact on health. You were not aware of this concern. It wasn't even somewhere in the background that there is a concern about the impact of the health of mental health care users.
Yeah, but like I indicated again, you see...
You can say no, and we can leave it there.
I don't recall reading the letter.
Why would you not have read this letter? Why would it not have been brought to your attention?
This letter was addressed to the MEC, and as I can see the professors say, as it happened, I know some of them, I know Prof. Zabo, but I don't even know whether the MEC responded, because this letter was specifically sent to the MEC requesting
It was sent
a
to
meeting.
Dr. Manamela.
Well, my impression was that they are requesting a meeting with the MEC for help.
Yes, but the letter was copied to you. Does it mean that when government officials are copied on letters, it doesn't have any impact?
I don't know why you generalize about government officials.
Because
if I haven't read the letter, I don't think you can't say government officials. I don't know.
So you're saying you did not read the letter?
I don't recall. Council, I don't want to come out as if I'm being evasive, Justice. If I recall the letter, I will say I recall the letter, and I will stand for whatever happened.
Well, the point pressed upon you really is people working within your department. They are high-end clinicians, heads of psychiatry in different hospitals under your jurisdiction. Write to the director, copy the HOD, and treat the interests of the MEC, and you can't remember the contents of the letter. So, Council is entitled to press you on to say, but why such a momentous thing? Why was it insignificant not to remember?
No. I didn't say it's insignificant. I'm saying I don't even want to use any other term except it's if you don't recall something, it would be incorrect of me now to say I recall it.
Well, she goes on,
it.
Advocate Hassan goes on and says, and you went on to sign a termination agreement that implemented en masse movement of mental health care users under the claim that is going to reduce costs and that it would be done in a way that will afford mental health care. These are the points that she has read out to you in the letter. You see, you went on to do the opposite of what your internal clinicians were warning. She's entitled to press you and say, why did you go ahead with this? Why don't you remember this? Because it's so crucial.
But how can you ask,
warning.
why don't you remember? Unless you're suggesting that I'm not telling the truth.
No. I think the suggestion is, did you perhaps ignore the contents of the letter?
No, I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't do that.
That is the point that she's pressing you on.
I wouldn't ignore a letter. I wouldn't.
Then she's entitled to say, why don't you remember its contents? If you wouldn't ignore it.
I don't
Anyway,
know. I mean,
It passed you by, in other words.
what do you mean by that?
This letter and its contents passed you by. Whether you read it or not, actually, is not the point. The point is it passed you by.
I don't know. I'm worried.
it
It passed
made no
you by.
impression on you. That's what counsel is really saying. It came and passed by as a non-event.
No.
Okay. Could you explain then to the question?
She's, and please forgive me, counsel, but I get an impression that you are suggesting that I deliberately ignored reading this letter at all. If I'm wrong, please forgive me. I'm saying to you, I don't recall this letter. It doesn't mean that I ignored the letter. It doesn't mean it passed by. If I understand English well, it passed by. No. I just don't recall. If I did recall, I'm repeating again, I would stand by my word and said, I read the letter. I would stand by my word.
Well, let's test that by going to the substance. If you had remembered that your clinicians who are head of psychiatry within your had warned that en masse transfer of patients could be detrimental, would you have nonetheless signed the termination agreement? Just forget about remembering or not remembering. Had you remember, if you had seen this, would you have gone ahead and signed the termination agreement?
It is highly probable that I wouldn't have, because I know some of the professors here. It's highly probable that I would have said, whoa, let's wait and let's call these professors and let's have a discussion. That's why I was indirectly saying Dr. Madikwe was part and parcel of the team. And I don't recall in any meeting where I sat with Dr. Madikwe that he robustly indicated some of these things that are really paramount, and I'm not undermining this letter, that are really paramount. I don't recall him. It's a him, I actually know him well. Yeah, I don't recall.
They say you won't save costs by transferring or placing patients outside life Esidimeni. Did you apply your mind to that issue? That in fact, despite your motivation of husbandry, you are not going to save any money. They tell you so, the specialists who work in the field. Had you read the letter and remembered, would you have gone ahead to displace all these people?
I hear what you're saying, Justice. I hear you very well, and I understand you very well. But you are pulling me back time that in 2015. What would I have done at that time? Really, Justice. What would I have done in 2015? There are so many things at that time. If I said to you, I would have, I feel like I would be lying to you if I said, no, I wouldn't have signed this. I would feel like I'm being dishonest. That's how I feel.
Counsel,
Justice,
witness is yours.
It is 5 o'clock. And
Yes.
it might be a good enough time to adjourn.
It is a good enough time. Let me leave you with this parting thought.
Okay.
You are required and want to be here tomorrow At 9:30, we're going to start.
I'll be here.
Mr. Musenogi, sit where you are seated now, and talked about the pain of implementing something that he knew is likely to be disastrous on the lives of mental health care users. Do you share his pain?
Yeah, it's painful. He implemented. It happened under my watch. It happened under my watch. It's something that's hanging around me. It's hanging.
And like him, did you try and resist the move?
Well, I don't know. Mr. Musanifu says he resisted the move, but he was attending the meetings. He was the leader. We sat and spoke and you know, would sit in my office and say, "Eish, eish, eish, eish," you know. You know, we would sit. So that was the pain. That was the pain, and we still even said after the event, it was very, very painful for us. It's very, very painful. It's not something that you wake up during the night and say, but why? You even start wondering, couldn't have something hinted to me that the way to go is not this one, but that one. Honestly, Justice, I want to tell you, it's not something that is easy to dismiss. It's a painful episode. We will carry it, the pain that the families feel and carry every day. We carry that pain, some of us. It's very painful. It's very painful.
Ardira yane ra ka moso nako ya 9:30 ke kgopela o nne teng
Ke
fa.
tla be ke lefa.
O bo lefa re tlo go bua. I've just warned the witness in his mother tongue that he should be here at 9:30 tomorrow to continue with this evidence. We are adjourned.
Ke lebogile.